So we currently have a welfare system in this country that states you cannot have certain assets to qualify.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't have investable assets. You can't have a IRA with like $10,000 in it and be on food stamps. So what does that mean? That means that you probably are not going to invest in an IRA, or you're going to end up liquidating an existing IRA so that you can qualify. That's negative number one, because building wealth in this country means you need to invest.
There's a lot of different types of scams. Let's talk about welfare scammers. I seen you
Yeah,
did a little bit of show of this, and I was
yeah.
like, I thought it was an interesting thing because,
Uh,
it's ruining the Black community because I think one, typically welfare scammers are single parents taking advantage of the system
mhm,
and not trying to up themselves monetarily. They're hiding money a lot of times.
mhm.
They're also lowering their own
Potential. Yeah,
potential
yeah,
income, and it's all because of this hidden guise of not being able to, it's being scared almost to
mhm,
step out and try to do it on your own muscle.
yeah.
And I think welfare scams definitely are ruining the Black community because we always hear, look, I would love to be on food stamps. Look, I would love to be on food stamps, but I couldn't afford the minimal, like just the lowest income that you had to have and the amount
Right.
of children that you had to have. I just couldn't mathematically phantom it. But I
Yeah.
understand that certain people
Mhm.
do need it, and it is used for certain situations.
Right.
Food stamps can be used in emergency situations, like if you have to evacuate a city. If you have to, FEMA gives you temporary emergency food stamps.
Mhm.
Fine. But we're talking about purposely lowering your income base to
Right.
obtain money two for a dollar, or a dollar on the cent. And it's,
Yeah. It's really an issue. So I recently did a show, the show that you're referring to. I did a show basically saying that welfare keeps people poor. Right.
mhm.
That's the opening statement. So if anybody knows my content, sometimes from time to time I'll do a show, a series called Change My Mind. I will come up with a premise and say change my mind. And in that show, I was basically saying welfare keeps people poor. Change my mind. And this comes from years of experience as a financial planner that does pro bono work. So for those of you who don't know kind of how that works, I do pro bono work, basically meaning I take on clients who are under the poverty line and I become a financial advisor for them for free. And don't call my office, though. This isn't something you're going to get through my office. I do this through the Financial Planning Association and other nonprofit organizations, and I get my nonprofit hours. But to make the point, I deal with clients who normally would never have access to a real financial advisor. And I worked with them from, step one all the way to, the final stage of financial planning. And I noticed far too often that the client will actually turn down job opportunities
Yes.
because that would keep them from being able to continue on the welfare programs. It
Nichelle said,
actually, yeah,
Nichelle is exactly saying
yeah,
that
yeah,
they will purposely lower their employment
mhm,
just so they can maintain but be below.
yeah. It's ridiculous. Because think about this: most people operate based on a reward system, right?
Mhm.
If you tell someone that you're going to reward them if they exhibit a certain type of behavior, you're most likely going to see them exhibit that behavior more. I think that's a simple concept for most people to understand, right? If you reward a certain type of behavior, most likely you'll see more of that behavior. Okay. So we currently have a welfare system in this country that states you cannot have certain assets to qualify.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't have investable assets. You can't have a IRA with like $10,000 in it and be on food stamps. So what does that mean? That means that you probably are not going to invest in an IRA, or you're going to end up liquidating an existing IRA so that you can qualify. That's negative number one, because building wealth in this country means you need to invest. So that already puts you in a box of a person who's not motivated to invest. So you can be on welfare. That's one. Here's two. You're motivated to not have a two-parent household. You're motivated because if you actually do end up marrying the baby daddy, the welfare system will say you're either going to get cut off or you will get reduced benefits. So now we have a culture of, well, we don't need to be on paper. Our love comes from God. So, this is my husband. I introduce him as my husband, but we don't have to deal with that paper stuff. Well, the reason why they don't want to deal with that paper stuff is because it will affect their ability to have Section 8 housing, their ability to get the food stamps, right? So once again, now you have a government-sponsored system that is rewarding single parenthood, right? So now you have the income, because I talked about the assets before, single parenthood. Now you're rewarding someone to stay at a lower income. Once again, turning down employment opportunities that would boost your income, but at the same time reduce your welfare, so you turn it down. So now you have the government sponsoring people to not invest their money, to not have a two-parent household, and to remain low income. That's the type of welfare system we have in this country.
And not only that, when you look at bank accounts, if you get over $600, guess who gets reported?
Well, yeah, there's that. But I want people to not get too scared. Because when it comes to the
but it does create a cash-based society.
Well, yeah, but at the point that we are now, we're never going back to 100% cash. We're too digital. We're way too digital. It's too easy. It's not going to happen. But for those of you who are aware, so what E is talking about is that when there is a transaction of $600 or more through these various third-party payment apps, like Cash App, right? If there is a transaction of $600 or more, that could potentially be a taxable event. Now, if me and eBlack, if we're friends and I send him $600 for something, like, hey man, here's $600, you borrow, you give it back later. Or I'm just going to give you $600 and you just never give it back.
Your car could have broken down. Your car could have broken down. Or you could Or I could have just provided you like a hair service, or I took care of you.
Let's not get to that point yet. Let's keep it non-commercial for a second.
Okay, I see where you go.
As long as it's non-commercial, that's not going to be a taxable event for you. You want to make sure you contact a qualified accountant when it comes tax time, because what you're going to receive from these third-party companies like Cash App, PayPal, Venmo is what's referred to a 1099-K form, right? But as long as the financial transaction, like, listen, I send my wife a lot of money through these payment apps because they're just easy, right? They're extremely easy to do. Well, this is my wife. Right. So if Venmo, Cash App, or whatever gives me or gives her a 1099-K, well, I prepare tax returns, so I know what to do. But I will be able to mark that this is a non-commercial transaction, so it does not need to be reported as income. Now, to go to your point about if you provided some sort of service for me, now, that you need to report it. Now, in the past, it wasn't reported. They were just hoping that the small business owner was self-reporting their income. Well, here's the issue. A lot of them don't. A lot of them do not self-report their income. So what the IRS and the Biden administration is doing is they are forcing your hand to report the actual taxable income that you're receiving through a commercial activity is either providing a product or service. But if we're just talking about friend to friend, person to person, family member to family member, of just giving you money with no service or product in exchange, that is not a taxable event.
Okay. Let me focus on no, you have the Black Lives Matter, our special ladies are Erica Williams, classy climb, smartphone money. Wow, that is a name.
Hey, listen, Erica is one of the hardest working sisters on YouTube. She drops like 3 or 4 videos a day.
What?
She been oh man, look, Erica been doing her thing on these YouTube streets for
all right, I'm gonna subscribe to her.
For years.
She says these same folks say they don't want the government in their marriage, but want the government welfare, housing, and food stamps. Make it make sense.
Oh, it's 100% hypocrisy. They're just saying they don't want the government in their marriage as a smokescreen. Yeah. Just so that they can justify the fact of, if we get married on paper and I have to actually show that you're in this household contributing to this household, they're going to cut me off. But in reality, they don't really care about the paperwork stuff. They're not trying to be all spiritual and not have the government in their business. Trust me, they like she said, they want the government in their business, giving them welfare.
But not only that, think about it like this. If you have to sign a lease as a man, you do not have access to property. You are now being liable to get kicked out of a property. I've told guys tons of times, never sign a lease and move in with a woman. Once they have that power, they will be able to kick you off. And I think this is where I think a lot of times the men get in themselves in trouble, because they say, well, I cannot afford the child. I will allow my significant other or baby mama to go on welfare, to go on public housing, to get these government assistance without my income. However, I will now withdraw myself from the household purposely because
on paper, they stay there. Let's be real, they stay there, but just on paper. And here's what it ultimately does.
I still live down the road in my mama's house.
Have you ever seen a domesticated predator? It's the saddest thing in the world.
Yeah,
it's like you take a lion, but you domesticate it. Yeah. That's what that man just turned himself into, because now he is literally just another child of that woman. He gets an allowance from that woman. He gets a curfew from that woman. He comes home a little too late, he might not be able to get in. She can call the police and they say, hey, this guy's just keep trying, my baby daddy trying to come in. Hey, I live here. Is your name on the lease? So you're turning someone who should be a natural predator, not in a violent sense, but in a more of a opportunity thing. You should be able to go out in this world with no limitations and try to achieve as much as you can. But this welfare system turns you into a domesticated cat, not a lion anymore. You're doing just enough to stay in the good graces of your owner, which is the welfare system.
Yes. And I've seen it. Remember that skit, or what we find out now with the hamburger, the guy who dropped off the hamburger and he said, yeah, I dropped it off to my kid. And the first question that he said, the woman said, well, I have 3 other kids. He said, didn't you have your food stamps?
Right. She said she don't get it to a certain date or something crazy.
So that little interaction right there is a microcosm of how welfare scammers, and I won't say, I know we're calling them scammers, but I'm just saying abusing the system detriments the Black community, not just economically, but relationships wise. And we need to figure out a better economic system than just dependent on the government, because obviously it has far more detrimental attributes than anything else.
Yeah, so that's the true point. These people believe that they're getting over on the system, but in all actuality, the system is getting over on you, because it is stifling your potential. You could go out and do more and be middle class, or even better than middle class, but you're staying in this little pocket, never having real assets, never really showing what your full income potential could be, so that you can continue to get fed and housed by the government that
Yes.
actually hurt you. You think you're the real scammer, but the government is really the one getting over on you.
And I want to salute to Red Lipstick Vibes, another Black Pride member. She says, salute E and JT. Welfare homosexuals are taking over. Gail at night says, call a spade a spade. I know. I be a little simpish around here. That green vegan, she laughs at that.
The homosexual is so
Black
real.
Pride. She's another Black Pride member.
That's what's up.
But yeah, so yeah, I think we've pretty much gotten the whole rundown on that.
Yeah.
It hurts. It ruins our Black community. I don't care what anybody says. It just ruins it. And I hopefully we will get beyond that, and we can see the economic growth that we can have on our own volition, other than the government. So
let me touch on that just real quick, just to close that up.
Close it up.
Idea. Okay. In the past, being on welfare was something that the average person would be ashamed of. Not saying you shouldn't get it if you qualify, but it was something that the average, and I'm not just talking about American, I'm talking about African American, Black people. We did not like being on welfare traditionally. It's something where if you qualify for it, you was on it, but you did everything you can for upward mobility to get off of it. There is a lack of shaming in the community that is hurting us. We don't shame scammers. We don't shame people on welfare. Not saying that they should be, but it should be something that you're trying to strive to get out of it. Someone who's perpetually on welfare needs to be shamed. Someone who's just taking advantage of a government benefit that they are actively engaging in because they are a taxpayer, that's great. But someone who's perpetually on welfare and not striving to get out, they should be shamed. Scammers should be shamed. Anybody who is not uplifting what we traditionally have as values in the Black community should be shamed. But we live in a society where, hey man, if it makes you feel good, do it. I'm not going to worry about you. I'm going to worry about me. And look at the type of community we have based on having that type of do you attitude.
Yeah. And I agree. And I'm not even going to, we're going to put a period on that one. Okay.
We can go all day. Right.
And we had a lot of different questions coming up, and I see you guys in the chat. But we're going to move on because trust me, me and JT will be here all day.